Continue sending in those texts. We'll get through some of those here before we get to the bottom of the hour and bring in old Michael Russo. But now let's go to the phone lines and check in with one of our favorite people to ever grace the state of hockey. It is one Bruce Boudreau, now a star of television, joining us here on KFAN. Bruce, Kevin Falness, good to talk to you.
It's good to talk to you, Kevin. I'm glad my wife reached out because I'd forgotten what time it was yesterday.
You know, Russo mentioned the fact that that your wife had sent out that tweet, and I thought, oh my goodness. So now I kind of felt bad because I felt like I was starting from scratch, and I didn't want to bother you on this glorious June morning. But I'm glad you took the time for us. It's always great to hear your voice.
Well, yeah, it's great. And I was golfing. I didn't want to cancel the golf for the interview, didn't want to cancel the interview for the golf, so I'm going to be out of a hole. So as we're going, so
all right. Well,
it's a beautiful day.
We'll make this quick so we can get you back to your golf game. How is your golf game these days?
It's getting better. I got my handicap up so I can win some money now.
There you go. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the NHL and what's going on with the Stanley Cup playoffs. Florida is in Edmonton tonight, Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and it's been all Panthers to this point. What have been your impressions through the first two games out there in Sunrise?
Well, I mean, I think Edmonton outplayed them in the first game and didn't get rewarded for it. And I knew that Florida was going to play an awful lot better in the second game, and they did. And now Edmonton's in a pickle, I think. If you look at all the other series, Florida got better as the series went on. And I think, especially with the troubles that Edmonton seems to be having on defense, whether it's injuries or guys not playing well and sitting them out, and the Florida forecheck being what it is, I don't think it's going to get any easier for them.
You've certainly had your run-ins with Panthers head coach Paul Maurice, and I'm sure it's one thing to be on the bench opposing him, but now as a guy that's able to take it in and have an appreciation for what he's doing, what can you say about the job Paul Maurice is doing there with those Panthers?
Well, I'm thinking he's doing a great job. He's the only one that's, he's been there for 2 years. They've had a lot of time to learn from him. He's been in the business 26 years. So being in the business 26 years tells me that he knows what he's doing. He's seen every team. He knows what they do. So, I mean, he's got the right way to approach players. This is his coming right now. So I think I'm pretty happy for him because when you're in the league that long, you'd certainly like to win a cup, and this is probably his best opportunity to do that.
We know for the Oilers to get back into this series, that two-headed monster has to step up big. I don't think there's any doubt Connor McDavid's going to do his part. What have you seen from Leon Draisaitl, and how much does he need to impose his will on the Panthers if the Oilers are going to have success?
I mean, they can impose their will all they want. They're great players. There's no doubt about it. But, I mean, this is the best defensive team that they've played all year. I mean, it's not easy. Those guys are really good. You're into the top two teams in the NHL left. So, I mean, every ounce is a struggle. Every stride is a struggle. And the way they play defense, I think only allowing 2 goals or less in 1 out of the last 13 games tells you something. Now, and it gets frustrating for really good players that can't find any room, and I don't think either one of them can find room right now. So just a little bit of a struggle going on, but I mean, the biggest thing I think they have to do is shoot pucks.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not shooting pucks. They're just what they're actually, that was my best putt I think I've ever had right there with one hand while I'm talking to you. Anyway, they don't get inside. They're hanging on to it. They're trying to be too cute. They got to get back to what they do. And what they do is shoot pucks, drive to the net, let Hyman get the dirty stuff, and go. I think they're being too cute with everything, and until they learn to play, win those battles and win the one-on-ones, they're not going to win against Florida.
This is fantastic radio, by the way, and I'm going to give you 2 more quick questions, and we're going to get you back to your golf game. I'm hearing putting in the background. I'm hearing birds. I feel like I'm there with you, which I'm not, which is disappointing.
It's 85 degrees. It's great outside, and so. But talking to you, I haven't talked to you in a while. I haven't talked to people in Minnesota. One of my favorite towns in the whole world. For a couple years there, it was the most fun I'd ever had, and our teams were good. We faltered late both years, of the first 2 years, but we had over 100 points each year. No, all the experiences and the people I met there were fabulous. I loved it there.
I said 2 more questions. This is one of them. 1,000 games coaching in the National Hockey League, 300 in Minnesota, and you illustrated the successes there. Unfortunately, it fell short in the postseason, but so on and so forth. It still was a great run here with the Minnesota Wild. Now you're behind the camera. You're in front of the camera, I should say. You're not behind the camera. You're in front of the camera doing some great stuff on NHL Network, and we see all across the landscape as well here in North America. Are you enjoying this chapter, or do you have the itch to get back behind a bench?
Well, anytime you can talk hockey when you're not working, and I think it's great. And it's the only thing I really know what I'm doing. If you want to have a conversation with me, it better be about that. But I would love to get back behind the bench. I mean, I'm personally a little, I don't know what the right word is, Kevin, that I haven't had the opportunity since Vancouver, but it frustrates me, but I know that I could still do it. I know I still have the energy to do it, and if somebody comes calling, I would be very glad to come help.
Maybe that guy will be Matt Hendricks. We just had him on the phone, Bruce, and I'll let you go on this note. Give me your impressions of Matt Hendricks, the player, and now the general manager of the Iowa Wild.
Well, Matt Hendricks knows, first of all, that he's one of my favorite players. I think and I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to help him establish himself as an NHLer. I was really glad to see that he got the GM job. He's going to love it. And you know what? The best thing about him is he's going to be able to communicate with both the coaches and the players. And I think that's the biggest thing that sometimes managers forget what to do. And it's not always about coming down and yelling at them. It's about communicating and helping them out. And I think Matt's going to be great at that. One of my favorite people in the whole world. And I wish him the best of success. If I ask you who your pick is for the U.S. Open, am I putting you too much on the spot? No. Who do you got? I got to figure. Okay, you guys will hate the answer. It's got to be some Canadian. They're playing too good. I'm going Mackenzie Hughes.
Okay.
But we'd all like to see Tiger up there and Rory up there. And you just look at that golf course. It's too crazy to play. I mean, I'd shoot 140 on that thing. But I can't wait when we're done here. That's the first thing I'm going to be doing all weekend is watching that. So it's going to be fun. I hope you guys do great at the draft. I certainly love to see Minnesota back up there where they belong, and good luck to everybody out there.
Bruce, go enjoy the afternoon. Enjoy your golf game. Good luck. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good, Kevin. Thank you.
That is former Wild head coach Bruce Boudreau. He wanted nothing to do with that. I mean, he was awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong. Incredibly polite. He did forget about the fact that we were having this conversation because his wife reached out to me on Twitter yesterday and said, could you please reach out to Bruce? He lost your phone number. He doesn't know when he's supposed to come on. So, but I thought it was great. He putted while he was on the air. Very common-like. And the bird chirping in the background.
When I called him and he picked up, he said, how much time do I have? It's like, you got about a minute. He's like, all right, I'm going to hit one more shot. And I just hear him set down the phone and
I really wanted him to put him on the spot. I mean, this would be a total common thing where you put the phone down by his tee shot on that next shot.
Oh, yeah.
I would have loved to hear that. If he's got the Monica Seles grunt or if the ooh and ahs would have come from the others in the foursome. But it was nice for him to wedge us in because he is one of my favorite people.
Pun.
And he's wedge us in, you're right. Yeah. He's a great personality, especially one-on-one. And he says all he can talk about is hockey. Bull crap. I can tell you, being around him for the number of years he was here in Minnesota, certainly he did talk his share of hockey, but he talks movies, he talks fantasy football. Obviously, he's talking golf. So he's more to Bruce Boudreau than just the hockey. But this is a guy that's been in professional hockey for 50 years. Not an exaggeration. Going back to the days of the Fighting Saints. To the days of Glenn Sonmore.
Slapshot.
Yes, Slapshot. Paul Newman. This guy has been around the block a couple of times. It's too bad we didn't have more time with him, but we needed to get him out on the course. So good luck to Bruce Boudreau as he tries to work on his handicap. Why don't we do this? Let's squeeze in a break. When we continue, we'll go through some of these texts and these emails that are rolling in. Again, you want to be the ambassador, the hockey ambassador for the state of hockey? This is your chance to file your resume, your application. 64686. You can also shoot it to booth@kfan.com. First and foremost, you have to be extremely complimentary towards me. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw it out. If you're going to rip me, forget it. You got no shot of winning that Kirill Kaprizov autographed jersey supplied by our friends at the Hockey Lodge and hockeylodge.com. But also tell me why you deserve to be the heir apparent to Dan Barrero for the hockey ambassador here in the state of hockey. We'll get to that next. And at the bottom of the hour, Michael Russo of The Athletic and theathletic.com. Man. The applications are rolling in, 64686. Easy as that. Just text it in, or you can hit us up, booth@kfan.com. And again, I stress, be complimentary. You could also spell my name right. That, too, would help to get you noticed. 1 L, 2 S's, Kevin Falness, or you can find me on Twitter at Radio Falness. Again, 1 L, 2 S's. And this is where I'm really enjoying this. Certainly, I want to hear why you should be the next hockey ambassador for the state of hockey. But here are some of the compliments that are coming in. And this was genius.
None of them from last name Micheletti?
None. And
Wow.
Probably not listening, and that's mostly my fault. I've come into the habit of when he tweets at me something, I say, "Hey, Pat, I really miss you. Can't wait for the next Beyond the Pond." And then I send him a Pinocchio gif, and I don't think he likes that.
I always love that one.
I don't get much reaction from that, but it makes me happy. It makes me smile, and maybe some folks out there like that as well. But this one comes in from 320. Kevin, you are the greatest guest voice and hockey mind on the fan. You're also the best program password and initials player. Don't let those clowns in the morning tell you otherwise. That's from Aaron in St. Cloud.
Lathering it on.
So good. I have never seen such a chasm between right and wrong when it comes to hockey opinions than between Falness, who's always right, and Pat Micheletti, who's typically wrong. You're not going to find a bigger Wild fan than me. I follow all Wild podcasts daily all year long. Wife gets sick of hearing what Russo said. Kevin, if I knew you personally, I would have you record my voicemail greeting. Have always loved your voice. God bless you, 651 guy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg here. Falness, you're the greatest. You're the best. I teach my kids to be just like you. How's that for sucking up? Very good. Very good. And now they're not all just sucking up to me. They're also giving reasons.
Those are just the ones you're reading.
Those are the ones that we pick. It's at random. But you also need to give me a reason why you should be the heir apparent for the hockey ambassador of the state of hockey. Because I don't know when, at some point, maybe Dan Barrero says, I can't do this anymore. I want the next person to have it. And it's going to be on us to award that to someone. Some way you could be the vice president of the state of hockey. Anyway, during the hockey season, which feels like it was so long ago, we do this thing on Beyond the Pond called Brett Blakemore's Breakaways. It sounds like this.
It's time for Brett Blakemore's Breakaway.
Here's a break. Kaprizov in alone. Nobody going to catch him. Kaprizov score!
And now, Blakemore's Breakaways.
Now, for those that don't know, this is usually the time when Brett Blakemore gets roasted by Pat Micheletti for some hot take that he's got. And that's also sometimes the fun of it all. So what do you got here, Brett Blakemore? What hot take do you have stuffed up your sleeve?
Well, it's the breakaways. The idea is I can just go, since I'm free on net, I can just go in any different direction, whether it's a question for you guys or an opinion or whatever.
Yes.
And the main thing that was stuck in my craw yesterday, briefly for about, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, was the rumor. Well, it was a report that the Wild were going to rebrand to the North Stars colors permanently in 25-26 season, which, funny enough, we can look that far ahead in the 25-26 season. That's a throwback to Beyond the Pond.
I know.
And then, thank God, I texted you immediately because I said, I'm about to rip this if this is true. I don't like it at all. And you said, well, just hang on. Don't freak out yet. And thankfully, Russo debunked it pretty quickly that it wasn't true.
Russo checked his sources. I checked mine. It was the first I had heard about it, that they were going to throw away 25 years of Minnesota Wild history and just go to the North Star colors. I'll tell you what, you're not old enough. You don't care what the old North Stars were like. I love seeing those colors on the ice. on random occasions. I don't know that I want to go
Alternate's fine.
full time over to that color scheme, but I love seeing that. I've said many times, I look out there, I'm sitting in the Al Shaver press box, and I see that North Star green out there with the gold trim and the, even with the Wild logo on there. And I see them, and again, I'm not comparing this person to this person, but I see that number 4 out there. I think Craig Hartsburg. I see number 23. Yeah, I know it's Marco Rossi, but I think Brian Bellows. I see a 7. I immediately the thing that jumps to mind is Neil Broughton. Even though I know I'm sitting in the year 2024, every once in a while my childhood jumps into my imagination, and I see those. Now, I don't know that I would ever get sick of those colors, but I like it on the random occasion. And I think people really do like that color scheme. The ones that don't like it are going to be the most vocal about it, but I do like it. I don't want a full-time switch over to that.
So what I was going to do for the first breakaway is give my case for this color staying.
Okay.
And I've got 3 reasons. And a lot of it's subjective, too. It's personal taste. But, I mean, I wasn't alive when the North Stars were a thing. I was born in 96, so I have no nostalgia to it at all.
You're such a baby.
Yeah, I know. I'm only 27.
That's crap.
It doesn't... You can argue whether or not the Wild, they should change the Wild name. But the fact is, they are the Wild. They probably forever will be the Wild. Those colors don't fit the Wild name. They just don't. No one has said, you know what I think of when wilderness? I think lime green and bright yellow. No one's ever said that. But the current color scheme, the evergreen, the wheat, it fits the Wild brand and identity more than the North Stars one. 2, again, and this is more of my main point, think about how many generations of kids, like there's a generation after me who have only known the Wild. That's their squad. When you talk about changing the entire identity of the team, it's because, people older than me, that's the nicest way to put it, want the old team back. They want the old days. Correct. And I just don't, I think you'd be losing another team to multiple generations of Minnesotans that their team that they grew up with, their North Stars, is the Wild. And I think losing that for a nostalgia pop, I just don't think is a good idea.
Before you go to your third bullet point, to me that blows my mind, because you're right. There are people on this planet that only know the Minnesota Wild, have no recollection of the North Stars, and their only basis for pro hockey in Minnesota is the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah.
And for a guy that, jumped on board in the year 2000 to think that's what this has become, this has become this generation's North Stars, is mind-blowing to me. Of course that's the case, going back to the year 2000 to present day and hopefully a long and lasting relationship here in the state of hockey. To me, that's... Well, it makes me feel incredibly old, but it is. It's for, for this generation and older, maybe that's the shake of the shoulders they need.
I mean, my generation, the generation after me, the Gen Zs, and then I think the Gen Alphas after that, all they've known is Minnesota Wild hockey, that evergreen. I'd be okay with not bringing back the red jerseys, though. My third point, it's too close to Packer colors. We need to separate the border here. Come on, it's too. I'm not going to say it's a perfect match and get the rubes going, but it's close. And let's keep them separated.
Meanwhile,
I think everyone can get behind that.
And I'm completely shifting topics, but not really. The Twins are going to unveil. They've already unveiled their new uniforms. They're going to put them on the field, I think, for the first time on Friday. Yeah, and the problem I have with it is every Major League Baseball team is going completely off the guardrails. There's a few that have stuck with their somewhat color scheme, but I do watch a lot of the West Coast games and the Giants, the Padres. I think the Phillies, not that they're on the East Coast, but their uniforms are just gross. There's no reason for those to be. And again, they're not speaking to me. I'm north of 50, so I get it. They don't care what I think, probably. They're trying to go for that younger demographic. But they look, to use Meat Sauce's word, they look hideous.
Hideous.
Terrible.
Putrid.
So you don't like the red jerseys from the old days?
The only jersey of the Wild that I truly dislike are those red ones with the circle logo, because every team was doing the circle logo bit at that point. I agree with Russo. Those green, the script Minnesota ones.
Those are my favorite.
Were nice.
You didn't like the red. I would rather bring the red back than what they used for the Stadium series. I didn't like those. Those were
they're all right.
And I know that we don't see those a lot. I've still got a couple of those in my closet. I'm not a fan of those. And I'd rather see the red before I saw. Like when I think of the red jersey, I think of Bugard, I think of Bouchard, I think of.
See, I think of like Koivu,
Parrish. Yeah. Well, Koivu you can put in just about any one of these uniforms.
Yeah, well, that's also true. But I like our current homes are my favorite Wild jersey ever. I think they're just so clean.
But again, I do like the alternates, and I would like for them to stay alternates. See them.
I would agree.
Handful of times a season, and that's about it.
There's a difference between honoring the past and living in the past, and I think they should honor it without completely living in it and abandoning a team for generations of Minnesotans.
You know what else I get? And this is taking a stick to the hornet's nest. I get this a lot, especially from the old time folks. They want the home whites back. What do you say to that?
I'm out on that.
That's the way it used to be.
I know that.
Days.
Yep, I know that is the way. My argument for this is really weird. When you're watching, if you've got the center ice package and you're watching. Typically, fans, in my opinion, want to wear, not always, want to wear what the players are wearing on the ice, right? So if it were home whites, most people would wear the whites, probably. So if you're flipping around as a viewer, every arena would just be white. And I think that's kind of boring. So I like that when you tune into a Wild game, you see the green, or you go to Calgary, you see the red. I like that kind of variety as a viewing experience. So that's my only reason for it, really. I like the colors at home.
Wonderful start to Brett Blakemore's breakaways. I don't want to go too much longer because if we short shift Russo his time allotment, then I got to hear about that from the actual hockey ambassador. Yeah, he'll take it up with Boudreau. Yeah. Then they'll dump on me, and I don't need that. So what else you got up your crumpled sleeve there for your hot takes?
Well, the Wild are looking for...
You didn't do the effect.
Oh, no, I didn't. Good point. Good save. I'm a little rusted. It feels like forever since we've done Beyond the Pond.
I know it.
Though it's rumored that the Wild are trying to find a 1-year deal forward to get into the top 6. And the name that keeps coming up is Perron. Yeah. Which makes me go, all right.
A guy you hate to play against, but another guy you'd love to have on your team. He's a pain in the butt. He's an agitator. He's annoying as hell, again, to play against. I'd have a feeling you'd like him as a guy wearing those whatever jerseys he's wearing here in Minnesota.
Whatever jerseys.
Another name I hear, I'll flip it around onto you. I don't know if they can afford it. I don't know if it's possible. Matt Duchene's another one that I keep hearing.
I'd be more excited about that than Perron. Yeah, well, because we've got agitators, we've got grit guys, we've got guys that can mix it. Yes. And we give them 4-year extensions for doing it.
Wow.
So, yes, we need someone with a little flair, little offensive touch to help on the top 6.
Got one more? Effect, please.
Yes, I do.
Snow shower.
Speaking of people with potential flair, where do you see these two players starting? In Des Moines or in St. Paul? Liam Ogren and Marat Husnadinov.
I mean, I honestly see both of them starting in St. Paul. Don't you?
That's how how I see it rarely goes the way it's supposed to go. But yes, I would like to see them up here.
I think they're penciled into the lineup to start in St. Paul for training camp, preseason, and game 1 of the regular season, whatever date that is in October. So I don't think that's too outlandish. Maybe we can ask Russo if he thinks differently, but I'd have to think they're penciled into the top 20-some players as we embark on a brand new season of Minnesota Wild hockey, which, by the way, Brett Blakemore and your Brett Blakemore's Breakaways is right around the corner. It doesn't feel like it on June 13th, but the season's been over for almost 2 months. Yeah. The new
Pitchers and catchers report soon.
Is right around the corner. That's why we're cleansing your palate. We had so much fun with the basketball run, and yes, I know you all want to say it's a basketball. It's not. It's not a basketball time. It's the state of hockey, and that's what we're doing here today. We're planting our flag at center ice and reminding you what makes Minnesota so great. It's not the basketball, it's not the football, it's the hockey. Brett, should we go to break?
We should.
When we continue, we're going to go to one of the best bloggers on the face of the planet. He's live from Edmonton, and he needs no introduction. We're going to talk to Michael Russo of The Athletic and theathletic.com next on KFAN. All of a sudden, might be my favorite day of the year, June 13th, 2024. Hockey season is basically over. We got the Stanley Cup going on, but an opportunity to remind folks of what makes this state so good. If you're just joining us, welcome in. Paul Allen and Eric Nordquist are off, so myself, Brett Blakemore, we're filling these airwaves from 9 to noon, and we're reminding you what makes this state so great. It is the state of hockey, and again, if you're just joining us, we're asking you to send in your application to be the ambassador for the state of hockey. Dan Boudreau at some point might step down. And what we're asking you, I don't not only want your application for why you deserve that honor, but also give me compliments. And not all of you are following directions. Phil, you told me to jump off an overpass. That's not nice.
Come on, Phil.
No, 612 guy says, hey, Kevin Falness. That's not even close to my name. Comma, you suck. And you've got commas in there where they shouldn't be. Your grammar sucks. 612 guy. So anyway, we're having a little bit of fun with that. And that might have been from Michael Russo, actually, who joins us now from Edmonton. People are jumping on board, Michael. I didn't have to push him too hard, or too far to give me compliments. And it's been a lot of fun to hear how great people think I am.
612 guy seems like a very, very smart guy. I would like to meet him. I'd like to buy him dinner because I agree with him. You suck.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that a lot, and sometimes from people I'm related to. Give us kind of an idea.
I thought you were introducing. I thought your punchline of June 13th being the most important day of the year was going to be to point out to me that it's Val Buray's 50th birthday today.
I knew we'd get to the birthday thing, and that's how I was going to start this off. Again, this is Michael Russo of The Athletic and TheAthletic.com. I understand from Pierre LeBrun yesterday you celebrated your 55th year on Earth. Congratulations.
No.
Happy birthday, Michael.
No, that is, yeah, I know. Pierre heard it from me last night at dinner, and now he's got everybody thinking I'm 55. I'm already devastated by my age enough. Now he's aged me by a good chunk. So, but yeah, no, yesterday was a fun day. There's no better day in your life than to fly to Edmonton on your birthday, Kevin.
I'd have to assume, though, did you make it out of there before? Because you look at all the social media, not only from the media trying to get out of there, but the team itself. The Panthers waited an extra day and maybe paid the price for getting in a little bit late for Game 3.
Yeah, that one was stupid. I mean, they had been predicting this storm for the entire time that I was down in Florida, so 3 or 4 days. And it was one of those storms that Florida gets every now and then where a storm comes over South Florida, but then just sits there. And so it dumps 13, 15, 17 inches of water. And so I actually thought it was coming in on Tuesday. So I was taking a 2 p.m. flight out. I actually moved my flight up after Game 2 to 7 a.m. So I essentially and changed my airport to Miami. So I changed. I left Game 2 and drove right to the airport for my flight. And I, at a minimum, don't know why the Panthers didn't move their flight up. Even if they couldn't get a hotel here in Edmonton, they could have flown to Calgary and spent the night there and come here yesterday. And now, they put themselves in a position. Luckily, they opened the airport literally for them to just fly out of there. And then they closed it again at Fort Lauderdale Airport when there was a little pocket of window where they thought they could get out. So they only got here 3.5 hours late. But, there's only one Florida Panthers writer that made it to Edmonton. The rest are going to be having to cover from home and then probably spend a couple grand. Yeah, if the Panthers win tonight and it's 3-0, I got to think that there's going to be a lot of writers in South Florida spending a fortune to get here for Game 4.
Holy smokes. I think I heard you talking to Dan about the fact that there used to be a media shuttle that would go back and forth. I think it was the Tampa. Did they bring that back?
No, so they have one. They have a media shuttle just for the rights holders. So essentially Sportsnet and ESPN had a Air Canada fully outfitted first-class 70-seat plane that they flew out on Tuesday. But yeah, back in the day, when I covered the Edmonton-Carolina series in 2006, the Star Tribune allowed me to fly the media charter. And so, the NHL came up with a price and we paid per leg and we just the media charter between Edmonton and Carolina the entire way. And it was a big giant 777 Air Canada that 250 people from the league, officials, rights holders, technical people for TV, and then writers were on, and it was pretty slick, especially after Game 6 here in Edmonton, where we all flew overnight on a red-eye to Carolina and got there at 7 a.m. The morning of Game 7. So But they haven't done that in many, many years. I think the last time they might have done that was like Anaheim, Ottawa, in 2007. But that one I covered for the Strib, and I'm pretty sure I flew Delta.
Well, I'm sure you did. What has this playoffs? Before we even talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, and as we get ready for Game 3, you can hear it tonight on FM 100.3 The Fan. I think the coverage starts about 7 o'clock right here on KFAN. This playoff season for you, it's hard to believe the Wild season's been done. We're going on 2 months now already, and you've been anything but idle. What has it been like as you keep up with the first round, second round, now all the way into the Cup Finals?
It's been a blast. I mean, especially so I wasn't supposed to cover the first round, but then one of our Ranger writers went to a wedding, Nick Kelly's wedding, actually, who's from Minnesota, who used to be an intern at the Star Tribune. So a lot of people, and the Athletic, actually, a lot of people might know his name. So Peter Vaugh, our Rangers writer, went to a wedding, so they called me in to cover games 3 and 4 of the Ranger-Washington series. And because I was on the East Coast, and then Florida had a closeout game against the Lightning, the Athletics, like, instead of coming back to Minnesota, wanted to go down to Florida and cover the closeout game. Well, then the Panthers win that, and then they're like, you know what? You go to Raleigh and go to cover the Islanders Carolina closeout game, and that. So in 3 days, I covered 3 closeout games in 3 days in 3 cities. Spent 3 or 4 days in Raleigh. Did a big Jake Gensel feature and Freddie Anderson. Flew back to Minnesota for a day. Then I've been on Florida ever since. I covered the Panthers Bruins, Panthers Rangers, and now Panthers Oilers. And, you know, it's just been a blast. It's fun. You know, I was saying this to somebody yesterday. It makes you really wish that for Wild fans that the Wild can go on a long playoff run, because this is what it's all about. Like, especially as a hockey writer, Kevin, and you in hockey and working for the Wild. I mean, this is what you want to do. You don't want to close up shop you know, a week and a half into the playoffs, or like they did this year, not even getting into the playoffs. As a hockey writer, you want to cover hockey when it matters, and covering the Panthers has been a blast. I've covered them so long now, like players think I'm basically a beat writer for them, know me by name, fist bump me when I'm in the locker room, you know, like things like that. So it's been just a really fun time. The games have been super compelling. The storylines have been tremendous, and then covering Paul Maurice has been, you know, I've known him for really 30 years now, and it's just been, you know, his storytelling, his what makes him so good too, Kevin, is like when you're a writer that's not used to covering a team and you swoop in, you're expected to catch up and know everything that's going on about the team right away. And when you ask Paul Maurice a question, he almost gives you a history lesson. And so it's just been really fun to cover them.
His press conferences are great. And I do want to get into Paul Maurice here in a second. And again, in the best case scenario, this would be you covering the Minnesota Wild on this long playoff run. Not the case here. When you took over this gig with the Athletic, this was what you envisioned, though, right? Even if the Wild weren't active, you'd have the opportunity to cover this sport on the highest level, no matter what's going on, whether it be the Stanley Cup playoffs, whether it be the Stanley Cup finals, the NHL draft, going overseas and covering the four nations. This is what you envisioned, right?
Yeah, that was part of the intrigue about coming to the Athletic, and they've kept their promises to me, is that I would be one of our national writers, and you know, I would never leave my day job, and will never leave my day job of covering the Wild with Joe Smith, but that after the Wild are done, or even in season, and that's the great thing about having Joe Smith with me in Minnesota, is that I can go and cover things like GM's meetings in the Four Nations and things like that. But then when the Wild are done, that I get to cover the Stanley Cup Finals every year and one of the conference finals. And so this has been a little more than I envisioned, covering 2 months of this. But it's been, this is why I came here. I think the Athletic, we have some of the best national hockey writers out there, and you know, working with Pierre LeBrun and Chris Johnston on an everyday basis has been really just eye-opening for me. They're such professionals, and so it's been really, really cool.
Again, we got Michael Russo on the line from The Athletic and theathletic.com. He's in Edmonton getting ready for Game 3 coming up tonight as the series shifts north of the border. The Panthers are up 2-0 on the Oilers. Your thoughts on the series to this point?
Yeah, so far, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman, really the entire Edmonton team has been bottled up by this incredible defensive juggernaut that is the Panthers. You know, everybody seems to look at them as this offensive juggernaut because they've got guys that can score on their top three lines. But what makes them so good is their defensive play. I mean, Bobrovsky's been awesome. Their top pair of Ekblad and Gus Forsling, who, Gus Forsling is, he's probably everything the Wild have always wanted Jonas Brodin to be. I'm not meaning that as a slight to Jonas, but this guy is elite at every aspect of the game. He's been awesome. But Barkov is what stirs everything with this franchise. And I think, and when he, as Kyle Oposo said to me the other night, when your two-time Selke winner is taking care of the defensive side of the puck, nobody else has any excuses. And I have never, ever covered a team that every single game will go 15 minutes without even giving up a shot attempt, let alone a shot. It's crazy the way that the Panthers defend. They seem to always have the puck, and Edmonton, at least to this point on the road, has not had a sniff of winning these games. I mean, last night, 2 nights ago, they had 7 shots through 2 periods. They just have been bottled up. And so, Evan Rodriguez has 3 goals, and Edmonton's 13 forwards that have skated in the series have 0. Yeah. So that just shows you everything. So obviously now they transition here to Edmonton, where the fans have been absolutely incredible throughout this playoff run. It is going to be a different atmosphere than I think the Panthers faced even in New York and Boston, which were rowdy crowds. And now Chris Knobloch will get the ability to, pair McDavid and Draisaitl at times if he wants to, but get him away from Barkov. Like every even strength shift so far this series that McDavid has been on the ice, Barkov has been out with him until Draisaitl knocked Barkov out of the game with 9 minutes left in game 2. And so now you get them, if you could get guys like McDavid and Draisaitl away from Forsling and away from Barkov, I think it's going to open up a lot of things for Edmonton. So obviously tonight will be a huge must-win game for Edmonton. There's no way that if you fall down 3-0 in this series that you're going to reel off 4 out of 5 against 4 out of 4 against the Panthers. There's just no way.
No chance, especially, like you say, the way they're playing defensively, and goalie Bob has been fantastic when called upon. I don't know what kind of media availability you've had with the Panthers in the last 24 hours because of their travel delays, like we said, but I think the full expectation is that Sasha Barkov will be on the ice tonight.
Yep. Yeah. He skated yesterday, and he looks fine. He definitely got hit in the jaw by Draisaitl, but he looked, everything that they said yesterday is that he's fine. He looks fine on the ice, so I expect him to play. The only real question mark tonight for the Panthers is Vlad Tarasenko. Hasn't skated the last couple of days and clearly has been dealing with something. For a guy, I don't know what it is, but for a guy that's had 5 shoulder surgeries in the last 5 years, obviously that's a concern. So we'll see. They're going on the ice here in about 45 minutes. So we'll see if Vladimir is out there.
What did you think of the hit on Barkov? In my mind, watching from my easy chair in St. Louis Park, I saw Leon Draisaitl propel himself, left his feet, and he put his elbow directly into the head, which ended up being the jaw of Barkov. I didn't like it, and any other time of the year, it probably would have been suspension worthy, but you can't do it when they're down 2-0 in the series. What did you think of the hit, and are you surprised there weren't any further ramifications?
No, and I exactly what you just said. I think that if Barkov didn't practice yesterday, or that the league, the way it works, and a lot of times is that the Department of Player Safety will seek out medical reports, and if they knew that he had a broken jaw or a concussion, I think that Draisaitl at least would have gotten a game. In the playoffs, very rarely, unless you're Matt Cook, you don't get more than one game in the playoffs. Obviously, the 2014 Cook got a 7-game suspension, but when he needed Tyson Berry and blew up his knee. But that, just doesn't usually happen, and it usually only happens when there's a significant injury. I didn't like the hit. I thought he left his feet. I thought he intentionally put his forearm up high. Draisaitl did just talk and said that, he's not somebody that feels he's a dirty player and doesn't like the dirty part of the game, and isn't somebody that tries to hurt people, and he just caught him in a bad spot. And to Draisaitl's point, he is not a dirty player at all. So, I think it was just a frustration play, right? I mean, these two elite superstars, and McDavid and Draisaitl, are just not used to not having room on the ice the way that they have been swallowed up this playoff round so far by the Panthers. And I just think it was a play the other night where he's not trying to hurt Barkov, but he's certainly trying to, play hard, send a message, and is just frustrated at that point in the game. And his hit got away from him. And luckily, for Florida's standpoint, it looks like Barkov's okay.
Last thing about this series, we talk about the injury situation for the Panthers. What's going on with the Oilers? What are you hearing about Darnell Nurse and Evander Kane in particular?
Man, so Darnell Nurse obviously is having some sort of leg issue from the check from Evan Rodriguez the other day. He's only played 3 shifts the rest of the way. I think it sounded to me like he is potentially going to play tonight. If not, Cody Ceci will get back in the lineup. The one that I just wonder if he's going to be out is Evander Kane. Like, Evander Kane was on the ice yesterday, shooting pucks, visibly grimacing. He's been dealing with a sports hernia all year long, really, and is going to need surgery after the season. And from talking to Marcus Lino about when you have sports hernias, everything that he was showing when he was shooting the puck is the way that Marcus describes it. Marcus says that when you have these core muscle things, that everything you do is just like stabbing pain. And obviously I've never had that, but it just felt like Evander couldn't do anything yesterday watching him in practice. And then apparently he has a hip flexor thing going on too. So I just think at some point they're going to have to take him out. I know they want him to be in the lineup, but he is clearly not himself, hasn't been himself all postseason long. And there just comes a point where you're not helping. And so he's the guy tonight that if I had to guess is not going to be in the lineup.
But they are bringing Corey Perry in, and we know what that means. It'll probably ratchet up the physicalness of the series and potentially the ugliness. Stepping away from the Stanley Cup Finals, it's hard to believe, but just 2 weeks away, the NHL draft will take place at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Of course you're going to be at the Sphere. You would have been at the draft no matter where it is, but especially if it's going to be in Vegas. I know Joe Smith did a piece with Judd Brackett here, and I think it posted earlier, maybe even just yesterday. What are your thoughts about the Wild and the draft coming up in just 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what they do because they're at that sweet spot of 13 where, if you talk to a lot of scouts and even Judd, he basically says there's 11, 12 can't miss guys in the first round. The Wild are at 13. So it really, now the way it usually works is that if the Wild think that there's 11 or 12 can't miss guys and you're at 13, 1 or 2 of those guys are probably going to slide to you. But then you have to determine on your list, like, all right, how can't miss are they? And if the Wild can move down a couple spots and pick up an extra second round pick, or, even and a third round pick, because they don't have a third this year, I think it's something that they would really consider. Like, and the one team that I'm really looking at is Chicago. Like, Chicago just made a weird trade with the Islanders where they just moved up 2 spots. And what that tells me is that they're trying to get closer to the top to use that to move up even further. And so Chicago's the one team I would look at if I was a Wild fan, is maybe do the Wild drop down to 18, pick up another second round pick that either the Blackhawks acquired in that deal with the Islanders, or take their pick, which is the 34th, which is the second pick on the second day, which would be a great pick. And maybe you can even get a third out of it. So I actually think that there's more of a chance of the Wild moving down in the first round than actually using that pick right when it happens. But that's usually not something we're going to know until that moment on draft night, and we'll keep our eye on the table. I can't wait to cover the Sphere. It's going to be really unique. I was talking to Steve Mayer the other day about some of the things they're going to do. It's going to look different than any other draft, where the draft essentially, there's going to be multiple stages, but there's going to be one stage that's sort of in the middle of the floor of the Sphere, and then all the 32 teams' tables are going to be on each side of that. And then the other thing that's going to be really neat is that, outside the Sphere with the projectors on every pick, they're going to essentially, if you are outside the Sphere, you're going to be able to look at the Sphere and see the actual draft pick get selected and go up there. It's going to be basically like a giant television set. So I just can't wait. There's so many things that they could do to make this thing special. And I think like the NHL has been in a lot of things, I think this is going to be an innovative thing where all of a sudden other leagues are going to be like, you know what, this is a good idea. I think we're going to go to the Sphere too. And so I don't think this is going to be the last draft that we're going to see a professional league have at this at the Sphere.
Never been there, been outside it. I can't imagine what a concert would be like in there. I've seen some video of different concerts that have been inside the Sphere, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, I would have killed to go to see U2 there, and I just never was able to make the timing work. And so I'm looking forward to it. And then the other thing, I mean, that Wild fans probably more care about than the actual draft pick is like that is trade season, right? I mean, that's where usually big trades happen. I have heard that Bill Guerin has gotten a little more aggressive in shopping Philip Gustafson around the league right now. If it's going to happen, I would think it would be around then. And we'll see. I think teams like Jersey, LA, they definitely need goalies. I think Jersey has a big fish in mind trying to get Markstrom or Allmark. But if that doesn't work, I think Gustafson is a great plan B for them. And so that's the one thing that I think that we should be paying attention. The other thing that has been obviously that we've talked a lot about here, Kevin, is Marco Rossi. From talking to other people around the league, I don't get the impression that Bill is aggressively trying to move him. I think if something fell in his lap that was a no-brainer, he would consider it. But I think at this point, he's more inclined to give him another year. Let's see if he can grow on his really good rookie year that he had this year. And let's see if they can really make something of this kid and he can turn into a top player. There's no reason to make a long-term decision now on Marco Rossi, especially when the only reason why they would be doing it would be because of the future of them thinking Urov or Height could be in that spot. But neither are going to be, Urov's not here yet, and Height is still a 19-year-old that they're going to give a chance to make the team. But, we're going to have to see over the next couple of years if Height is really the real deal. So I just don't think that the Wild are as inclined as they maybe were a couple months ago to at least shop him around.
Two more quick things for you. First of all, we did Brett Blakemore's breakaways. It's a staple of Beyond the Pond. And now Brett's got another question that he brought up during Brett Blakemore's breakaways. I'll let him unfold it here to you right now.
Well, yeah, I'm always looking for the next prospect and the next new guy to break into the lineup. And we saw Liam Ogren and Marat Husnudinov. Do you think they both start in St. Paul, or do you think Liam might start down in Des Moines?
I think Liam starts in St. Paul, and I think there's actually a better chance that Husnudinov starts in St. Paul in Des Moines. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I love Ogren. I just think he's awesome. I think you can play him up and down your lineup, even if you start him on the fourth line next year because your top nine are Phil. I think that's fine. The other thing, by the way, you got to follow. Everybody's got to follow his dad Andreas on Instagram. His dad's a trainer out there, and his dad puts up videos every day of both Liam and Noah Ogren, his brother, their workouts. And this guy is, you see why Liam Ogren is as jacked as he is. The reason why Husnudinov, I'm not convinced yet, is that he's going to be here 100% is I still think that as much as I know the Wild are going to go after a top six winger on a 1 or 2 year deal, and that is a priority number one. Like, if I'm the Wild, I was talking about this on my podcast yesterday with LaPanta. I am going after Kevin Stenlund right now. Just going after him. As a free agent. This right shot center for the Florida Panthers is going to be a free agent. You probably get him in the $1 million to $2 million range, and they have to get a big right shot center that could win some draws on the penalty kill. This guy is such an elite penalty killer. We all know that the downfall of this team last year was the penalty kill, and I just think that they've got to address that situation.
I'm going to let you go on this note, and you can say there's nothing new, nothing more to report, but you guys have been all over the drama and the soap opera that is the release of Natalie Darwitz from the Minnesota PWHL team. You got anything new on that front?
No, nothing new. It was bizarre to me at the draft that nobody really did a big story. That was the opportunity. I get that, I don't know if Ken Klee just wouldn't comment or the league officials or whatever. But I just, to me, that would have been a time that if I was there, I would be working on a big expose. And, at some point they got to address it. There was a rift between Natalie Darwitz and Ken Klee, and they chose Ken Klee. And so at some point this has to be discussed, and it feels like this league's just trying to bury that topic. And so, it's just whatever. We are only getting the one side of the story, and so we'd love to give them the opportunity to tell their side of the story, and so far it just hasn't happened.
Michael, thank you, as always, for your contributions. Happy birthday to both you and Val Bure. Enjoy Game 3, and we'll see you in Minnesota someday soon, I hope.
All right, take care, guys. Take care.
There he is, Michael Russo of The Athletic and TheAthletic.com. Game 3 coming up tonight from Edmonton. Puck drops just after 7 o'clock, and you can hear it right here on KFAN. When we continue, you can hear the voice of the Minnesota Wild, Joe O'Donnell, in studio, my co-host for the next hour, right here on The Fan.